Welcome back to the Arbitrage YouTube channel. In today's class, we're going to learn how to make this simple A-line dress. It has a standard collar that goes from the back to a little bit of the front. It's a very simple tutorial. If this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of the tutorial. So we're going to start by folding our fabric into two. The back has a zipper allowance, as you can see. So I will start by marking my starting point, which is going to be my shoulder line. So on the shoulder, I'll mark the shoulder divided by 2. The shoulder is 19, divided by 2 is 9.5, and I'll mark that. I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope and 3 inches for my neck width. So you're going to take your ruler and connect for your shoulder slope. So from there, you're going to mark your armhole measurement and make that into a straight line. So from the starting point again, you're going to mark your half length where your waist is going to be. Okay, it is going to be fitted around here. So if it's for a big person, you may want to use your underbust measurement so that the tummy is not going to be showing too much. So that is my half length there. Then from there again, you go ahead and mark your hip length. So once you mark all of this, you're going to go ahead and make them into a straight line. So the next thing that I'll do now is to mark my bust divided by 4, my round bust divided by 4, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance to that. So you're going to mark your waist. The waist I'm working with is 44. So we'll divide that into 4 and then mark our waist divided by 4 and add our seam allowance as well. So we'll go over to the hip and then you're going to mark your hip divided by 4. The hip is 52. You divide by 4 and add your seam allowance. So the next thing is to grab your curved ruler and connect them together. So it's like an A line. So from your hip now, you're going to connect to the end of your fabric. This fabric is folded into two using the length of the fabric. Ankara length is 45. So that is the measurement that we have there on fold. So I'm going to mark that all the way to the. So once you connect that, you have your A line. So on the hem, I don't want it too straight. I just came up by 2 inches on the side and then connected it back with my curved ruler. So this is what we have so far. I want to create my armhole line. I mark my shoulder measurements there and I connected there. So you're going to divide what you have into two, come in by half an inch, and then take your curve so that you can link the points together, and then you go ahead to draw your armhole. So I'm drawing for both front and back. So the next thing is to work on our neckline. So for the back, I'm working with 3 inches by 1 inch. And then for the front, I'm working with 3 inches by 3.5 first. And then I'm going to determine how deep I want the front to be and make that into a V shape. But it's going to have a I'll mark out where the collar is going to stop from the on the front, and then from where the collar stops I'll connect to come to form my V neckline. So the collar is going to extend from the back and then stop there in front. So you mark your allowance, sewing allowance on the shoulder. So here for the tightening at the center back, I went in by half an inch on the waistline, and then I'm going to connect that my my other part. So I'm using 1 inch allowance for the zipper. So you can see that the waist allowance is smaller because of the tightening we are doing so that we'll avoid gaping. Like I said, it's for a big person and our back is somewhat inside, so I don't want it to gape. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to grab my scissors and then go ahead to cut out what exactly what you chalked on your pattern. You will cut everything out. You are cutting both the front and back together. Then when you get to the armhole, you cut the back first, then When you take out the back, you can now cut the front. And this is the zipper area for the back. I'm going to cut that out as well. I'm cutting the neckline, and then where your collar is going to stop, you can place a notch there if you want, so that you will not forget. So this is what we have. We are not going to be using a lining for this. So like I said, it has a zipper. So the first thing I will do is to hem the V part of the front. Remember, the collar is not going to get there. And also install a zipper at the back. So for the back zipper, it's not going to get to the end, to the neckline of the back, because like I said, there is going to be a collar there. So you measure like 1 inch away from your neckline, and then you install your zipper. So this is the neckline for the front as well. I have already turned with my facing, and you can see that it stops where my collar is going to be. And that is the zipper for the back as well. I've installed the zipper, and it's also stopping 1 inch away from my neckline. So the next thing you want to do now is to join your shoulder together. You're going to join the shoulder together, and you go ahead and weave so that it's going to be neat. Remember, we are not using lining for this. So I've joined the shoulder together. So now once you join the shoulder together, the next thing is to put the neckline on fold, and then you're going to measure out where you're going to be installing your collar. Like I said, remember, we have a collar that's going to run from the back and then to around 2.5 inches in the front. The rest of the front is already turned. So now this is what the collar is going to look like. I'm drafting the collar here using the measurements that I measured on the neckline, and then the height of both the collar and collar stand is going to be 4.5 inches. So that small space is where our collar is going to be. So the first thing we're going to connect is our collar stand, and you can see me do that. I have a detailed tutorial on how to do this on the channel already, so I don't want this to be too long, so I'll just quickly run through this one. So the first one we have created now is our collar stand. So from the collar stand, we'll go ahead and create the actual collar, as you can see. So once you connect like that, you measure the height that you want for your collar stand. I used about 1.75 for mine, and then you go ahead and connect it to the edge and create your slant for the collar. So that is the collar and the collar stand. So the next thing is to cut them out. So I'm indicating that that part has to be cut on fold. That's the center back. It is cut together, and you need to cut it on fold. So you're going to go ahead and cut it out. So once you cut it out, you go ahead and cut it on your fabric. If you want to add your interfacing to it, you fuse the interfacing to the este to the fabric first before you cut it. So those are the collar and the collar stand. So this is the fabric that I'm using. I have fused my interfacing to my fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So while cutting, I'm adding 1/2 inch allowance all around to sew it. So you're going to cut both the collar and the collar stand, and you're going to cut two. Remember, you will need a lining for it. So if you're using your fabric as a lining, it means you cut two of each. So I have done that, and then you sew the collar first. You place the lining and the main fabric, and then you sew around it. Then you turn it out. So once you turn it out, you iron it, and then you bring your collar stand, and then you sew the collar stand to it as well. So that is the collar stand. You're going to notch the middle and then match them together. So you're going to be placing the collar in between the lining and the main fabric of your collar stand, and then you sew around it like that as well. So now you're going to bring your dress and then you're going to be fixing the collar all around, starting from the front, from the little part of the front, and then you sew it all to the way to the back and then back to the front again. So you can sew your collar anyhow, but this is the easiest way I know. So you just put the seam allowance in between the collar like this, and then you pin it down and then sew all around it. So this way it's very easy for you to sew. So once you pin for the two sides in front, you pin the center back as well, and then you pin the rest of the neckline. It is as simple as that. So I'll just go ahead and pin all around. So if you want yours to be sleeveless at this point, you should find a way to hem your armhole. Either you use a lining or a facing or bias. So that is it. I'm using an A-line sleeve for mine. So that is the sleeve I'm cutting there. It's just a regular A-line sleeve, and I've cut for the two. So I'll go ahead and install the sleeve on my dress. Can you see I've sewn the neckline, and that is what I'm showing. Can you see how clean the neckline is looking? So this is what it looks like when it is on the mannequin. You can see how simple it is to make. This is for a big size. As you can see, this is what the collar looks like. It's just extending a little bit to the front. I hope you enjoy making this with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.